Welcome back here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College, another in our series of community awareness. Here today with another regular visit from Emerald Coast Hospice, Sunshine Speers. We'll be talking about patient safety. When we say patient safety, I know most of us are saying, well, that doesn't pertain to me. You're going to tune it out because you're not a patient. You're not in the hospital. When we come back, though, Sunshine's going to explain exactly what she's talking about when she says patient safety awareness. I'm sure every one of us has got some loved one, family member, maybe just a relative who is a patient. And when we come back, Sunshine's going to explain all of the things of which you should be aware that just make their life a little safer and easier. We'll be right back. Welcome back. As mentioned, our guest today is Sunshine Speers from Emerald Coast Hospice. I got to tell you, I'm really enjoying you coming on a regular basis. I think that there is so much that we find ourselves talking about. When we say hospice, we immediately think death and dying. You've explained why hospice is actually not that at all. But on top of that, we're talking about a lot of things that we should be aware of when it comes to just general health, whether it's talking about heart health, as we did last month. This month, and I appreciate you being here today because it's no more apropos than we're talking about patient safety awareness. As I said in the pre-show, and as you explained to me, many times we tune that out because we ourselves are not a patient at that moment, because we say, oh, a patient, that means you're in the hospital. What do we mean when we say that patient safety awareness?
Well, just in general, elderly are predisposed or more likely to have incidents of falls, medication errors, and things of that nature. So as home care providers, obviously with hospice, we refer to the people we take care of as patients, but that doesn't mean that the others aren't at risk. So like you said, the family members, loved ones, relatives, neighbors, anything of that nature, they need to understand that they are at extremely high risk, elderly are, and that we need to take extra precautions to ensure that they don't have any falls or fractures or anything of that nature.
Yeah, the thing you said at the beginning really got my attention. We've spoken about it in the past, and that's medications. So often, especially as we get older, and I'm experiencing it at this point myself, we tend to be forgetful. We're going to multiple doctors sometimes. They are prescribing different medications. Maybe we're not doing as good a job, or they're not asking the right questions to relate to them. Hey, I'm already taking this. Now you're giving me this. How do those counteract? So we have people taking multiple medications, sometimes that don't mix well. So let's talk about that part of it to start with. If we know somebody, I think that's something we should probably keep our eye on.
Okay. Well, just like we've talked about in the past, we have to be advocates for ourselves and the people that we love. And part of that is understanding the medications that you're taking or your loved one's taking and what they're for and how they're supposed to take them. So when you have a person who goes to a specialist and a primary care physician and a specialist for, say, the heart or diabetes, and they have multiple physicians, you're right, they can put them on multiple medications. It is very, very important for that person to take someone with them to the doctor's office, for them to take a notepad, write down questions, have the doctor write down things for them that they're maybe having difficulty understanding. If they give you a new prescription and they say, hey, I'm going to send this prescription to the pharmacy for you, have them spell it out for you and tell you what exactly you're going to be taking, how long he wants you to take it for, and then when you get to the pharmacy, make sure it's the same medicine. It is not unlikely that, the pharmacy they can make a mistake, obviously. The physician can accidentally send the wrong prescription in. It happens, and it has to go through 3 hands before it actually makes it to the patient themselves or the person who's sick. So they need to check that medicine and compare it to what the doctor told them. It might be a generic. So if it's a generic medication, ask your pharmacist, is this the same medicine that perhaps the doctor spelled out for you? That's important because we can be taking 2 of the same medicines and not even realize it because they're named something different. The color of the pill might be different depending on the manufacturer. If they get it filled one time, it might be blue, and one time it might be white. If you get that, you need to ask for help. You need to tell your pharmacist. You need to talk to someone who helps you with that. Talk to your nurse if you have a home care nurse and say, hey, last time I got it, it was blue. This time's white. is it the same medicine before you begin taking that medicine? And don't assume that the pharmacist is always right, or the pharmacy always fills it correctly, or that the physician always gets the prescription correct when they send it in.
I'm sure that the pharmacist will thank you if you catch their mistake.
Absolutely.
Better to catch it prior to. Just as we do with Emerald Coast Hospice, we try to have Northwest Florida Community Hospital as our hospital here in Chipley come in and speak as often as we're able. Recently had Chairman and CEO of NFCH, Michael Kozar, who has recently, or within the last year, come on and taken over the hospital. He pointed out that just recently they have forged a relationship with a local pharmacist. So when somebody is in the hospital, in a bed, overnight stay, and they're prescribed a medication, they have the option of having that pharmacist actually deliver to the bedside that prescription. As Michael Kozar pointed out, so often you're handed a prescription on your way being discharged from the hospital, and they say, fill this on the way home, you need to take it. Well, how often in that hustle and bustle of getting discharged, you're happy to get out of there, you're probably in pain, first thing you want to do is get a nap in your own bed, you forget about the prescription. This allows that patient immediate medication that they need, and that opportunity for the hospital to again be that second set of eyes to check if indeed that is the right prescription. So a service like that I can see would be really valuable. But let's talk about the fact that now you've got somebody who's not been in a hospital stay, who is just on a regular maintenance dose medication. They fall, they hurt themselves, they end up getting a pain med for whatever that malady is, but they're still taking their regular medication. So that's where sometimes that problem would come in. And I would imagine when you're dealing with an emergency room situation, all the more opportunity for mistakes, because an emergency room is crazy, especially when it's particularly busy. If you're that patient, what can we do? Obviously, best thing to do is your friends, relatives. Frankly, I don't go to the doctor without my wife being with me because my memory is going, but even besides that, I don't like going to a doctor, so I'm in a different frame of mind. If there's another person listening to what he's saying, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And the thing about an emergency room situation is, that doctor may not know what your primary care physician has you on. If you don't provide them with a list, if you go to the hospital on an ambulance, obviously, they may not have accurate information on what current medications you're taking. So it will tell you in your discharge instructions from the emergency room to follow up with your primary care physician. That is vital as soon as you possibly can, because that primary care physician needs to evaluate what happened, what you're now on, changes in your medications, whether you go see a specialist. It doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency room visit, especially if it's a specialist that primary care physician did not refer you to. They may not be sending records back to that doctor, so they won't know what you're taking. Always bring your medications to your doctor's offices, not a list of, because some people write them down wrong. Some people leave things off. The list may be 2 years old.
Put them in a plastic bag.
Put them in a plastic bag, and the bottle that they were prescribed in, don't mix them bottles. I have one that only has 3 pills left, and I'm going to fill the new one. Let me just add these to this bottle. Please don't do that, because that causes some confusion, especially if the pills are different colors and someone else may come along that's going to help you. They're not certain if you're taking the white one or the blue one. So it's best to leave the medications in the bottles that they were prescribed in until they're done.
Bad enough that you go to the emergency room for a health-related issue, but were it, say, an automobile accident, you may end up going unconscious in an ambulance. There's not that opportunity to ever check records, and so you end up getting discharged from there, and in the hubbub, again, that primary physician not being consulted. In this day and time, especially with Medicare, Medicaid, and all the other insurances, there's opportunity in some cases for, especially as we get older, for somebody to go to literally a half dozen or more different doctors for different things, but being prescribed things, and again, maybe counterindicative. Is there some, I know everything's pretty much computerized now, but it's only as good as, garbage in, garbage out is what I say. It's only good as the information that's put in there. So if you get an older person or somebody who's getting to the point where they don't remember so well, it's nobody's fault, but there's still a problem there. I mean, are there more and more safeguards like that being put into place, do we see?
There are, and a lot of doctors, especially when you go to a specialist, they're going to ask you what medicines you're taking. That's why it's important to take those prescription bottles with you. If you have home care nurses come in, whether it be hospice or home health, they're going to ask you what medicines you're taking. They don't rely on a list. They don't rely on your memory. They want to see the actual prescription bottles. That really is truly the safest way. But it's not just prescriptions. It's over-the-counter medications, things that you can go into your local pharmacy or Walmart and pick up. And that may be multivitamins, that might be laxatives, that might be supplements of any sort.
Decongestants are bad.
Absolutely. They will cause blood pressure issues. So if you're having difficulty regulating your disease, whether it's congestive heart failure, COPD, hypertension, high blood pressure, it's important to keep that open line of communication between your primary care physician or someone who has knowledge of healthcare. If you have your home care nurses coming out, let them know, hey, I'm having these issues. Is this okay? I've had, multiple instances where I'll see a over-the-counter bottle maybe sitting on the dresser of a patient, and I ask, when did you get this? Oh, I've had it about a week and a half. Well, I was here 4 days ago and you didn't mention it to me. This can cause this and this and this. So it's just important to keep communication open. And for the healthcare providers, us nurses and physicians and practitioners to continue to encourage that. Because without that, we won't get the information that we need to better care for the patients.
And something probably people don't even consider. You go into a pharmacy, whether it's a CVS or a Walmart pharmacy or King's Drugs or whatever it happens to be, wherever you live. You go in there, the pharmacist and their staff are usually pretty busy. So you probably tend not to. So if you're going to pick up something that's non-prescription, you probably don't want to bother them. But probably not a bad idea to take it up there and say, listen, I'm already taking this and this. Is this something? Because they're just like, saying, no, there's another one. It's the one in the red box. That's the one you should take. So I think that just that awareness, and I see a lot of pharmacies nowadays who are really educating their staff. They're watching, and when they see somebody who may not be, who has obvious infirmities, I've seen them go out there and say, "Can I help you find something?" It makes total sense. When we talked about patient safety awareness, obviously the prescription drugs, the indicative multiple prescriptions, or just as you say, over-the-counter stuff. But let's talk a little bit about in the home, the opportunity for falls, the opportunity, as we get older, we sometimes forget that we can't do that anymore. We're not supposed to be climbing that ladder, cleaning out our own gutters, or maybe we shouldn't be taking the chainsaw out there and cutting off that limb. But unfortunately, most of us are hard-headed, and we don't want to give up that opportunity to do. I would imagine one of your messages to friends, neighbors, relatives is sort of keeping your eye on that person. And, if they start climbing that ladder, and they obviously shouldn't, do you run into that?
Absolutely. I mean, the important thing is that we shouldn't present an opportunity for them to do it. If we know they have a stepladder in their home that they keep in the kitchen for when they need to put dishes on the top shelf or whatnot, we need to, depending on how much we help them or how much we're there, is to do that for them. I know that can be difficult because giving up our independence is a challenge. And so we have to find a way to ensure them that we're doing it out of care, obviously, that we're not trying to take control or to take any level of independence away from them. Find things that they can do. But the majority of our slips, trips, and falls do occur either in the kitchen or in the bathroom. As you can imagine, in the bathroom, because the water, there's water involved and there's a lot of opportunity there.
Tile floors.
Absolutely, for individuals to slip and fall in the bathtub itself. It's important to have a non-skid mat in the bathtub or shower and ensure that it's adhered to the tub itself.
Is that something that your staff, as far as visiting nurses and so forth, do they look out for that kind of stuff?
We do, yes. Part of our home assessment is for us to look out for things like that because we have to look at the whole picture. So we're not necessarily just dealing with the diagnosis of the patient. We're looking at the potential for injury. We're looking at for the potential for weight loss. All of these things we need to be aware of, and we're trained to do that. The information that we're given and the process of assessment allows us an opportunity to, for it to jog our memory and go, oh yeah, we need to look for this and look for that. But it's important. Make sure when you go in to do your shower, if you're doing it independently, that you have everything you need, your towels, your washcloths, at reach. Don't have them across the bathroom so that you have to walk out, get out of the shower on the wet floor. A lot of it is just learning to be prepared. And also, if you use a walker or a cane or a rollator, making sure that it's locked. and that it's within reach, making sure that the cane is, where you can access it. Don't leave it across the living room. And if we are uncertain whether or not the person that we're caring for or our neighbor is able to do those things safely when it comes to bathing and such, they have lots of community resources that can be provided, whether it be home care, hospice, home health, or senior citizens programs that can come and help, whether it be doing the bath for them or just some simple oversight to ensure that they are safe.
I would imagine that there are a lot of people who fall through the cracks. They're not on hospice, thankfully. They don't have some kind of a visiting nurse or rehab service that comes in on a regular basis. They many times don't have relatives who are close by who just simply don't stop by. Do we find that law enforcement, EMS, the medical community sort of keeps their eye open to make sure that, when I worked EMS a lot of years ago, a lifetime ago, we had welfare checks. And when the ambulance crews weren't busy, they just simply rode to places that they knew older folks lived, stop by, say, how are you doing? If it was only once a week, it was huge. You could tell for the person themselves, the older person. But it's also, it just made total sense from an objective point of view. They might be laying in the middle of the kitchen floor because they did have a fall and they've been there for 2 days. That's not unusual to hear those kind of stories. Do we find that the medical community and EMS and first responders sort of have more of an awareness of that and do those kind of checks?
I believe so. Because I'm not in, the law enforcement side of it, but I do know that there are a lot of people who, just out of the goodness of their heart, whether it be law enforcement or whether it be neighbors, church members, things of that nature, people are still checking on others. But what I'll add to, when you said not on hospice, there are a lot of situations where people don't understand that they might qualify for hospice services because they are now more weak and frail. So not necessarily being on hospice because they're now in the bed and death is imminent for them, but our goal, under hospice is to try to look at patients' diseases as they progress and get them earlier on our services so we can prevent a lot of these things from happening.
And actually give them more lifespan.
Absolutely. So sometimes it is a disadvantage in a lot of cases for these patients and families who don't really associate hospice as being a home care type agency, whereas we are, and we can prepare these patients and families for these very type things as that disease progresses, because the likelihood of us falling or having an injury of some sort as our disease gets worse and our medicines aren't working as well is very high. And so those are the things that we look for when we look for patients who possibly might qualify for services.
Well, the benefit that you bring to the table too, Sunshine, is that your organization is partnered with Kindred at Home. And so you've got that home health component built in. So you're probably a little bit more aware, even than people that are just do hospice work. I would like to think that gives another dimension. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't cover? Obviously, our effort right now is just to talk about patient safety, whether you're a true patient just coming out of a hospital situation, or if you're just somebody who every once in a while somebody else should look in on. This is great information, but is there something else that maybe we haven't
Fire
covered?
safety.
Okay.
Fire safety. There's a lot of homes that still, don't have smoke alarms, or they don't want to hear the alarm go off, so they'll just tear the battery out, or the battery's running low and it has a constant beep, and so they're not able to replace the battery. And that's another opportunity for someone to either have a fire and an injury, or have a fall trying to change out the battery. But they do have smoke alarms that you can buy that aren't hardwired into the home. And CO2 detectors are also very important for those people who have gas heating, gas stoves, because that can't be detected in a lot of situations. That's very important to have those detectors as well, and have somebody help you and have them check them for you to make sure the batteries are working and in good condition, and keep them in. Don't take them out when you get frustrated with the batteries. So.
I know my wife uses the smoke alarm in the kitchen as a cooking timer, and so we know dinner's done when the alarm starts going off, and we joke about it. But many times I've started to either take the battery out or take it down. But what better place to have that smoke alarm than in the kitchen, where most fires are going to occur? So yeah, I can see where, sometimes we might look at a smoke alarm as more of a nuisance, but obviously there are a lot of deaths every single year, and it's no secret that many of those could have been prevented had there been a smoke alarm. Thanks for being here today. Great information. I know you're coming back soon, and we're going to talk about one of my pet peeves, which is distracted driving, and I'm looking forward to that conversation because that's something that again, it's just something that really annoys me when you see that person in front of you hitting both lines as they're texting. Thanks so much for what you guys do. Thanks for being a part of the show, and keep up the good work, and we'll look for you next time.
Thank you.
Our guest today has been Sunshine Speers from Emerald Coast Hospice. Today talking about patient safety awareness. Again, that word patient, which we're a little reluctant to use because we don't paint ourselves as being a patient unless we are in the hospital or just got discharged. But in reality, what we're talking about is people that could actually just use a little bit of a helping hand, an eye out for them. None of us are at a point where we can't use a little bit of TLC from somebody else. If you have somebody in your neighborhood, certainly a friend or a relative or a loved one, absolutely, check in on them once in a while. Make sure that, as Sunshine points out, if they need something done on a ladder, make that offer. Our service group, the Chipley Kiwanis Club, is always looking for service projects. This gave me some good ideas. Why not adopt some older folks just right in your own neighborhood? And maybe some of this overall medical attention can be avoided before the fact. We'll be right back.